brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
As social distancing becomes the norm of our everyday life, the Cable wants you, our customer, to know that we are here for you every day. Just log in to us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Send us your feedback at email customerservice@thecable.biz. Visit our website www.thecable.net. It's also nice to know you can pay your bills at a distance, online at all commercial banks, or at www.thecable.net/pay. Now's the time to try online banking. It's ultra easy. Call us at 465-2588, 662-7742, or 763-0184. The Cable. We're here for you.
Well, very good afternoon to you. You are listening to WinFM 90.9, also with our colleagues in the media industry, also being a part of the broadcast today. I want to wish you a very good afternoon and welcome you to the second segment of Inside the News. We have the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, Mr. Abdias Samuel, National Coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency, very much a part of the national response to COVID-19. And we're joined as well we have with us as well Superintendent Cormac Henry, the Division Commander for the A Division, who's with us as well. Well, I'm going to invite an early comment from the Prime Minister before we begin. I know there was a break, so let's hear from the Prime Minister and then we'll continue to take your calls. Prime Minister Harris. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Good afternoon. And of course, we're back. I was wondering whether you want to begin with a short comment or should we go straight to the telephone lines?
We can go to the phone.
To the lines we go then. All right. Caller, you're live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, Mr. McMahon. Good afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon.
The Prime Minister perhaps inadvertently did not answer my question from last week, which was what does victory look like and what really is the government's strategy in the fight. I think he objected to my use of ad hoc to describe the response. But to many citizens, that is exactly what this on-again, off-again lockdown feels like. Especially when he comes at the 11th hour to give edicts which we are expected to obey in hours with no advance time to plan. The citizens, for the most part, are patient and cooperative, but it would help if we were apprised of the overall strategy with the benchmarks and timelines for, let's say, 2 weeks, 2 months even, okay, so that we can have more buy-in. We would know exactly what our sacrifice is about. When the crisis was unfolding, yes, things were happening pretty fast, but we are beyond that now. We have no new cases. Those that we have are in isolation. Our borders are closed, belatedly but finally, and we have met the WHO benchmarks for reopening. So surely the government is in a better position to plan the way forward and share those plans with us. And one last thing, a bit of unsolicited advice to the Prime Minister. It's counterproductive to the all of government and all of society approach when the Prime Minister makes snide, thinly veiled remarks about people who are trying to help, even if it's constructive criticism. I think the Prime Minister should get control of the thin skin and resist the temptation to campaign and accept the best practices that others proactively engage in, like what the government of Antigua did in facilitating the return of its students.
Thank you, caller.
That's a suggestion. Okay.
Thank you very much. We go back to the phone lines. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon. All right, you seem to have missed that caller. Do call back, 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. Our overseas numbers are available to you as well. 0333-344-0065, 718-285-6984, 305-921-4619. And we go to the phone lines once again. Calling you live and on the air, and good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, sir, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to the Prime Minister and Mr. Samuels.
Good afternoon, sir.
First thing, let me thank Mrs. Laws. I think she's a very tough woman, very tough. So, compliment to her. The Prime Minister, I have a question to ask about the vendors at Black Crack and the vendors at the Nima market in Bassity at Port Zante. Now, they have not have much sort of reaching out to them at all. I don't know if anything can be done to help assist them. Maybe most of them, they are not on the Social Security scheme, so that become a little challenge there. And finally, there was a discussion sometime this week, and I think it was Freedom Radio, with Dr. Martin and Dr. Joe, speaking about the closing down. It seems like they're pretty much upset about the closing down. They want it to be reopened at this moment. They say people are getting fat from eating too much junk food. As you make mention, there's a sacrifice we got to make, so try to eat as healthy as possible. So I don't know how far that can be run. I mean, they really want the place closed down and they really want it open. At one moment they say it's closed down, and now they say it should be open up. So maybe this is something you guys can talk about. But you're doing a good job. Trust me, man.
All right, sir.
The lockdown helps.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your call.
All right, thanks.
Okay, we go back to the phone lines. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Mr. Backus, good
Yes, sir.
afternoon to you.
Hi, Gregory. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good
And
afternoon,
good
sir.
afternoon to the other person on the panel. God blessings to you all always. Now, what I'm calling is concerning this issue as well. For example, if it is that there is some kind of connection, which which certain experts have questioned, but if there is really any connection between the government enforced lockdown, social distancing, and the death rate of the coronavirus. If there is anything, and then like I said, there are places that other experts bring up to question that theory. There is a study that just come out. In light of that, there's a study that just came out by some Harvard disease scientists, published in the journal Science, that shows you that if you lock down, okay, and you prevent the spreading of it, provided that there is no vaccine that come on the scene, and there doesn't seem to be any coming on the scene right now, provided no vaccine coming in and no really effective medical treatment come on the scene, as such, real good effective medical treatment. When you open back up again, you're going to see a second wave, you're going to see a second spike. And so therefore you're going to go right back to where you were before. Okay? But the only difference is now because of the lockdown, you'll be in a worse position, because to the degree that you lock down is to the degree that you may have ruined or destroyed your economy, which would make things worse. That is why places such as Sweden and so that did not do this hard lockdown, they said, one way or the other you're going to have this. One way or the other.
All right, Gregory, thank you very much. We're going to go back to the phone lines now. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon. Sorry,
Yes.
let me just turn it down.
Yes, good afternoon.
Very
Go ahead,
quickly,
please.
and,
Yes.
it's good afternoon. Mr. Prime Minister, it seems as though because you're doing such a good job, persons trying to find many things to say. Now, the technique you're using is close down, open back up. Now, after yesterday, you had made your adjustation. Persons rushed to the supermarket, and I'm wondering why. Because it's only for today. Monday, you said the country will reopen again, partial curfew, and Tuesday, Wednesday, we go back into a full lockdown. And what I like what you did, you will set it for the next 2 weeks, because persons complain that sometimes you come too late to a destination. But if persons listen when you come on, whether on the radio or the television, right, they will see, hear, and understand what you're saying. and many of them, they go away with the wrong thing that you said, that you didn't say, and put it in their own context. Because if they listened the last time, they would have known that this weekend automatically was a lockdown, whether it was a partial curfew or full lockdown. And it's kind of sad to see you have to be repeating yourself over and over, but just because you're the Prime Minister, you will have these questions. I do feel sorry for Mr. Samuel and Mr. Cromwell there, because a lot of questions have been asked every day and have been answered every day. But persons still come back there the following day and ask again. But it's a tough job. Continue to educate the public. I will do hope that even myself, back at the media, can help to break down things in small little pieces for the similar or for the persons who don't want to hear the long briefing, so they can understand. Speaking about briefing, Prime Minister, what the briefing is doing is something good. Now, every day you have different speakers on the briefing. Like Mr. Laplace from Bureau Standard, he was there. He spoke about the hygiene, and I didn't even know about mixing clothes with other things. So I will encourage people to listen or watch the briefing. Mr. Brown speak about small business, how they can help, in assisting. So it's different persons you have on your briefing. You have Mr. Kamala come every day who gives you an update about arrest. I want to hear him come this afternoon and say there was no arrest made and the people are behaving themselves much more. This cat and mouse game, I happen to see some soldiers coming from Chua Alley. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they coming to Chua Alley? This shouldn't be happening. They're supposed to be driving around normal and don't have to be jumping out, running after people. And then, when anything happens, Facebook and social media is blowing up about excess force. But putting extra work on the police at this point is not good. And so in closing, Mr. Prime Minister, continue to do what you're doing. I know it's a task force, but you have the country in your heart. And as the leader, you have a good team with you. And I know you're going to see us through. Many businesses want to be reopened. And what you have said, okay, guys, you can reopen, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to put some glass case so you don't be directly in contact with the cashier. You're going to have 6 feet outside and limit the amount of persons going in. So you are listening to the people and you are making adjustments every day, right? But persons still going to go away and say you're not doing enough or you're doing the wrong thing. But I will tell you what, I am behind of you, I'm supporting you, and I'm going to send out the correct message to let the people know what is going on in St. Kitts and Nevis and what you're doing to keep us safe during this pandemic.
All right, thank you very much, Bucky. Thank you so much for your contribution. I think we've had several questions. Let's take another one. Caller, you're live and on the air. Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, sir, Mr. Politics. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the Honorable Prime Minister and to Mr. Samuel, the hard worker of this country. Now, Mr. Backus, where is the company program with you?
That's a good question.
Mr. Cromwell, is he there?
Yeah, man. You can't
okay.
You can't see the superintendent?
Yeah, I just told him, man. I just come from the mountain. I come out, so I get to listen to the first half at all.
Okay, go ahead then. No, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's why I have to tell the Prime Minister, when he program them, when you go and you got the animal them and his steak, you got to take the time and look for them. And I was up there since 7 o'clock this morning, and I just leave back down about after 12.
Well, Mr. Henry, Henry listening to you, right?
Hello?
You aware of Mr. Henry listening to you and taking notes that you're out since 7 o'clock this morning?
No, man, that's why I went to look for the animals and
okay, all right.
But the corona up there, the one up there, and the monkeys them up there, and I don't think they're affected with the corona or nothing yet. I had an answer.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I want to commend you and your team and the Royal St. Police Force and the different force. I think they are doing a wonderful job. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, they're saying that the closing down. Yeah, and you're opening, closing down, and you're opening. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I tell you, right, if you got to continue to do that, save our people life in this country. I want it to continue to do it, because it's working. And Mr. Prime Minister, when I put on my television, when I got on my phone and people send out anything to me, and when I turn on my radio and I tell them listen to BBC till morning, something I knew I listen to BBC till morning, and here we're going on out there in the other part of the world. Some of the leaders then do them come at the can get this corona control. Come at the doing can get doing what to do. But Mr. Prime Minister, I believe that you are doing the right thing, and I want to commend you and your cabinet to make those decisions you all made the other day with the 6 month thing, because I believe that is a good thing for the ordinary man and woman in the country, that you are working things for them and things go right. Because no matter what people want to Prime Minister, I do not believe that you're doing this to make the political mileage. You love the people, you love your country. That's why you're doing these things. You understand? You don't want to see nobody go there and then get in contact with this corona, start to give one another corona, go by a rum shop bar, start to drink, and when you get the sick, start to kill one another, and this disease start to spread. We ain't have nobody here to die. We ain't have nobody here to die. Well, listen, when I put on the news and I hear 50,000 people don't die in America, you understand? I say, what is this? What is this? And with one, that is cheap water things. You understand? So, Mr. Prime Minister, I want you to continue to do what you're doing, and you to be tough on what you're doing, and not give up and just faith, because we are praying. The country is praying for you. And some of these churches again, some of them only wide open, because when the pastor them miss the offering. So for the church to look and help the church members then, who in their state, some of them who can't get out to the boys to eat. They're talking about come open up church. You understand? And I just believe that because of the collector and the church opening to go to pick up the collection. You all have a wonderful day. God bless.
Oh my, you're going to be laughing on the radio. I'm sorry about that. Yes, Mr. Pauls, I don't know if your allegation is correct in the church. We want to collect collections. I think you're being a little hard on them. But I think it's time we heard from the panelists. You've taken quite a few questions and a lot of comments. Let me add one or two quick things as well. I have a few questions I'm going to pose. I think Mr. Samuel may be the one to respond to that. The PM has his plate full. Essentially, why not the beach? I think Mr. Henry may join as well, Superintendent Henry. Why not the beach? Salt water is good for cold and flu. So why not have a partial opening up of the beach? So you could go by X numbers, whatever. But the beach, please. That's one. Fisheries complexes. What's the status of the fisheries complexes? The Bastia Fisheries Complex and the others as well. And someone said to me that American Airlines is taking online bookings for flights to St. Kitts on the 7th of May. Can someone comment on that, whether or not this is something that's known, or whether they're going to have a quick word with American Airlines about that online booking arrangement? So first the Prime Minister, and then Superintendent Cromwell Henry, and then Mr. Abdias Samuel. Mr. Prime Minister, back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the callers. And one caller, I think, provided some insight into the mischief of those who cannot see a good thing and complement it. The government's approach to COVID-19 has been one of the most successful one in the region from all vantage points. Again, because we started an early planning process, we were we were the last country to have had the COVID-19 visit our shores. And our plan from day one was that we should try to keep it away from St. Kitts and Nevis for as long as possible, to give us time to strengthen our health system and to be in a better position to care for our people should they reach a situation where they needed to be hospitalized, go into our ICU units, and to be taken care of. The position now that we have had, since we have had our first case, had been to slow the transmission, and we have been very successful on that score. And while we would have wished to have had no more than one, the reality is that at this point we have 15. but there has been no main large spike in the number of confirmed cases in the country. Those who have been affected by it have only been affected in very mild way. As a consequence of that, our hospital at this time has no one admitted. As a consequence of that, our A&E is not being overcrowded by people complaining of respiratory problems. So both the clinical evidence and the other pieces of evidence point to the fact that at this particular juncture, thanks to our frontline workers and the effective support of the government, we have basically been able to control it and to keep it at a position where the health sector is not overwhelmed. The experience from Italy, from the UK, from the US of A, is that when health systems are overwhelmed, more persons will die. They will die because they will not be able to get care. They will die because it will be difficult to discriminate between those who have most urgent cases and those who perhaps could wait. And that is why part of the standard response is that you stay at home. Unless it's absolutely necessary, you would not be encouraged to go to the hospital. You visit your medical practitioner, you get advice, etc. Because the system is attempting to get at the worst people, those who are in more urgent need for care, support. And so that has been the strategy. Now that we have gotten that under control, and to Ira McMahon's credit, he understands that we have to begin a process of slowly opening up. You can open up, but you can't do it willy-nilly, as some people would want. And they know better. They know that the approach that the government is taking is the sensible approach, and it is the most responsible approach. Because we have to guard about doing things too quickly, not resulting in the kind of outcomes which are desirable for the country. We have always said from day one that we are working on the precautionary health principle, and we will not take one action that would jeopardize or imperil or endanger the health of any citizen or resident. And that is why ever so often when we speak, we say we were advised by the health professionals. Dr. Laws, Dr. Wilkerson principally have been guiding. So that is why when we decided to do the relaxation, to allow more businesses to come into economic life again, we had certain control measures. The determination, for example, of the need for the social distancing, the determination that people should wear masks, and so on and so on and so on. All those were outlined as precondition. When we began to look at the factories and their requests to be able to engage again, we set up a team, cross-section, of persons coming together, Labor Department, health, business, etc. Go visit the various factories, make a determination of the kind of adjustment they will need to make, both in terms of number of persons working, both in terms of arrangements for lunch, both in terms of sanitation and other issues related to workflows. And on the basis of that, you determine whether you will allow the factory to open. We have a system that is working and has worked very well for us. We are not going willy-nilly doing things. We are doing things as part of a systematic plan to protect the health of every citizen and resident, and at the same time ensuring that to the extent possible we can get things as near normalcy as the circumstances would allow. Frankly, there can be no economy without healthy people. And that is why the priority of the government is to get people well. And people have to appreciate it is all good and right to say, let me go open my business to make $1,000 or $300. And then at the end of the week, you contract the coronavirus. You have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to repair the damage you would have done to your own health. And that would be a shame. And that is why you have to get your priorities right. The priority, Ira, is health first. Health first. And once we have healthy people, those people will contribute to the health and vitality of the economy. We do not see it as a zero-sum game. It's either one or the other. You must have both. But if people are not healthy, they can't be productive. They can't come contribute. The businesses can't open. So we need to keep our people healthy. They are our most significant asset. We are a small country, and our job is to keep them well. And look how far we have come. We have come from a place where largely it was supermarkets that were opening to now almost every business is. When we allowed the hairdressers to come on board and the barbers, some people were making noise. The CMO gave the rationale for it. She had thought it through. She had gotten advice and best practices elsewhere, and she determined how the health of the clients could be protected. And she outlined a number of things that these hairdressers and barbers must now do, must insist upon: the wearing of the mask, the wearing of gloves, the disposal of them, the sanitization, the appointments, and all of those things. So we have thought things through, and we are doing excellently. That is why people from other countries are calling to get advice on how St. Kitts and Nevis is doing these things. So we are following the health prescription, and we are doing well. And what is amazing is that the opposition and its apologists are confused. They really don't know where shall we go. And thankfully they are not in charge of the country. Because at one point they said, lock down the country. People like Ira Macaron, just talking. Lock down the country. Lock it down for a month, man. That is what you want. And then when you lock down, they say, well, why you lock it down for? How people going to get to live? So they are confused because their strategy is not to help. Their strategy is to see the country suffering, and they hope to get political advantage. So those people you leave to the foot of the cross, and you prefer them, and you prefer your country, because for them, they will never commend the good things because they are not personalities full of virtue. We are following best practice. I will say follow the best practice with respect to Antigua. What did Antigua do? Antigua said if the students in Jamaica want to come, they will have to pay. Their parents and their families must get the money, and they will try to see also if they could get some business people to help bring the costs. Antigua didn't offer any free trip to anybody. So I don't know what best practice that is, but it's one that perhaps suits his way of thinking. The caller who called about BlackRock, Mr. Abdias, has taken note of the vendors of BlackRock, and I'm not clear what it is need to be done, but certainly we will ask, and I will also ask the tourism department to have a conversation with the persons at BlackRock. I want to say every category of worker impacted has recourse, one, to the poverty alleviation program. That is there. That is something brought in by the Team Unity government. Every person affected have a recourse to the Social Security Wage Fund, assuming they are self-employed, and the persons at BlackRock will come under that, or they are workers whose entities, workplaces had suffered, and as a consequence they either had been made unemployed or they are getting reduced income. So those things are things that people must do. But the caller drew to attention, and we hope going forward we will see people who are self-employed, make the little sacrifice to pay a contribution, however small, to the Social Security. Because you see now there are problems you're looking to get and you're looking to benefit in the same measure as the person who took time, was conscious enough, who had the foresight to go and register as a self-employed person. You took a conscious decision, I'm not going to pay no Social Security. I'm not in that. And now you see, the rainy season have come. The moment of challenge has come. You see the wisdom in following the best practices, and the Social Security certainly can be there. I'm not going to get into too much with IRA and some of these issues, but to say, as I said before, you need a healthy people for a functioning economy. And we therefore have to have both. But you need people first to be healthy and well, to go to work, to contribute to production and productivity, and that would help the economy. And we need a strong economy to be able to sustain and maintain the health sector. And that is why, as a result of our own fiscal and economic strength, we have been able to build out a brand new hospital at Mary Charles. We have been able to build a brand new health center at Tabernacle. We have been able to bring medical doctor services to the people of Connery for the first time in their history. And that is why in our budget for 2020, we had made provision for the build out of a health center at St. Peter's. And that is why we were also able, in the short of 5 years, to invest in dental and other healthcare service in Newtown. That is why, in the short of 5 years, we were able to open up a cancer wing at the JNF France Hospital. That is why, in the short of 5 years, we took the bold step of opening, investing and opening in the the treatment facility at Limekiln. All those things, because we appreciate that the health of the country represents the wealth. Wealth will come from more people being put to work. I want to thank Bucky for his supportive comments and to say thank you for being a reliable media, attempting to give people the facts and not the propaganda. Some people, you say the briefing are too long. Well, you must ask yourself, how much time are you prepared to invest to get information that will protect your life? How much time? Is 2 hours too much to learn how to protect yourself? Is 1 hour too much? That is an individual decision. But we say the briefings are there to help you, and we have no difficulty with Bucky playing a role and breaking it down, he says, in simpler terms for people to understand. In fact, we encourage more of these things. They are there for people who have questions and really want to know, to ask them to Cromwell Henry or the police, to ask them to Abdias, to ask some of the doctors so that they can learn. It is interesting that politics spoke to being up in the mountain. When we started this, the regulations did not specifically provide for farmers and fishers, because we care and we understand that we are there to represent the people and to balance various interests. We, in subsequent regulations, certainly in regulation number 14 and now number 20, specially provide for farmers and fishers to be able to operate on days of limited operations, and in the days of the lockdown to do so with the permission of Commissioner Brandy. So again, we are a government that is listening, and we are a government that cares. And as we listen and we get a good idea, we attempt to work on it once it will not bring no harm. And politics is right. The knowledge that we have is that most farms, by and large, would carry a small number of persons working on them. So issues of overcrowding are not real in terms of small farms in small societies like our own. It is therefore easy to implement social distancing. And we say once the farmer is prepared to abide by these requirements of social distancing, wearing of the mask, as Mr. Politics did today and will do every day, then that will be okay for us. Thank you, Politics, for again noting that our country is doing so very well compared to others. And the advice that we have been following, whether it has come from Mr. Brandy, or it has come from the health people, or it has come from the ordinary people in Sadler's, in Tabernacle, in Mansion, in Phillips, the advice has been good and which we have worked. And that is why to date, we have no deaths. To date, no admissions in our hospital. To date, our health sector is not overwhelmed. And that is why I was able to say on BBC, yes, we may be a small country limited in resources, but where we stand today in St. Kitts and Nevis, our health sector is 6 times stronger than it was when we inherited it in 2015. Where it was a situation where we had about 2 functioning ventilators at JNF, we now have maybe 15 or 20. Where there was none at Mary Charles, we now have there. And at Paxons we now have. And in other critical areas, we are now going to put ventilators. We are better now, thanks to Team Unity and our long-term plan to protect the country than we were at any other time. Certainly then, we brought in all the health professionals we could get out of Cuba. Where we are now in terms of our health system and the additional exceptional expenditures that we have made, we are better, more prepared to deal not just with this pandemic, but any other health challenge. Where we are at this particular time, the program has been interrupted by the pandemic, but we are going to set up a state-of-the-art facility to deal with all heart issues, heart problems. So we are moving the health sector forward into the future. The issues for partial opening of the beach and so on are matters which Commonwealth and Abdias perhaps can give their views on. I want to say with respect to the fishing complexes, I had asked the Director of Maritime, Mr. Mark Williams, and he did say to me he had sent a proposal outlining the various protocols for the fishing complex, and so at another occasion we will bring him on the program with your leave, Mr. Bacchus, because I think that is an important aspect of our food security as it relates to protein, that we would want to have a better discussion from the professional people there, and Mark Williams would be a good personality to discuss this one. But of course, any of the other panelists can feel free to give their perspective with respect to this matter.
And thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. So, to Mr. Abdias Samuel, Superintendent Cromwell Henry, your thoughts and response to the questions about beaches. The Prime Minister said we will get into the fisheries complexes issue a lot of time around, and the May 7 booking on American Airlines. And finally, ferries. I forgot to mention that. Ferries. Comments on ferries, please.
Yes, let me start with the beaches. Thank you, Mr. Bacchus, and thank you for the opportunity to be here again on your station. Now, the beaches have been put off limits simply because they attract crowds. We know how our people socialize on the beach. We have picnics, we have beach parties, yes. We have volleyball, beach football. Everything that attracts crowd happens on the beach. And so if persons are permitted to go to the beach, then that would put them at risk, put them socially too close. It would be difficult to maintain social distance in these circumstances. And the resources that it would take to police social distance on a beach, and there are so many beaches around the island, it would just be impossible. And so in order to protect people from themselves, as the Prime Minister always said, it is easier to restrict access to the beaches. Mr. Leslie Williams, he in one of the briefings, he said, the only vaccine that is known is the social vaccine. And that has been proven to curb the spread or prevent the spread of the disease, keeping persons away from being in close contact with each other. And so we ask persons to really look at it in that light. We do not, it is not restricted because we do not want persons to enjoy the sea. We know the sea is good for therapy and a lot of other uses, but it's the social distancing is the issue. It will be difficult to police, and so the easiest way is to have persons avoid going to the beaches.
Now, to the question of ferries, you mentioned that you've had to speak to a few bus drivers in the context of maintaining what is required. How are you coping and faring with the ferries?
Well, the ferries are a bit easier to control because the access points to the ferry is controlled by security personnel. The number of persons going onto the ferries is controlled. They have to purchase tickets to go on the ferry. They have to go to a security checkpoint to get to the ferry. So that is easier to control. The difficulty with the buses is that the buses are individually owned. Just the driver operate the bus and he pick up passengers from anywhere. And so we cannot be everywhere to count how many persons he's taking on the bus. We cannot be there for every bus to see if he's ensuring that the persons are wearing masks. And so that is where the difficulty comes in, policing the buses. So we have to appeal to persons' good judgment, good sense, and for their own sense of loyalty to their customers, in protecting their customers. And that has not been happening the way we would like. And so we continue to urge bus drivers, bus owners, to ensure that you comply with the regulations. They are meant to protect you and your passengers.
Mr. Samuel, the American Airlines?
Yes, Mr. Backus, as the Honorable Prime Minister would have mentioned, and as CMO Hazel Laws, Dr. Hazel Laws has also mentioned, we do not know exactly when this virus is going to overcome. Hence, our borders remain closed. I have also seen many persons have also called me, and I have also seen the advertisement by American Airlines. I brought it to the attention of the Mitigation Council Minister, and who in turn is going to engage the appropriate authority so that we could engage American Airlines to the Ministry of Tourism, who is the agency responsible, so that they can know exactly what is our stance. Because we do not know, we cannot predict if and when we are going to overcome the impact of this virus.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. We go back to the phone lines here for another round of calls. I seem to have missed that caller. Caller, do call back. A very good afternoon to you. You're with the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Samuel, as well as Superintendent Henry. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good
caller.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
This is Miss Uniton, the Prime Minister. You know, I'm calling you to congratulate you. You're doing a job well done. You're
Thank
not
you,
the
ma'am.
best. You're not
That's it.
perfect, so you're not perfect, but you're doing your best. And
Thank
I think
you.
right now you're the best in the whole Caribbean. Everybody looking at you now. Okay?
Thank you.
So you keep on doing it and don't lose your head.
Thank you very
Keep on
much.
your head, because if you ever lose your head, we lose our country. So you keep on your head and keep on doing the best for the people. Them of St. Kitts and health come first.
Thank you.
And with the churches, is the pastors them complaining about to open the church or just the members?
I have not heard any pastor complaining. The church is fully supportive of the government's effort, and I want to commend them. Maybe some of their members may have other ideas, but the leadership of the church, indeed, I think it was yesterday that Father Rollins out of Nevis explained the church position, that the church is fully supportive of the government's effort to restrict congregating in the church, and that the church is mindful that a large portion of their membership are senior citizens, vulnerable persons, and they, if the science holds out, are going to be the most seriously affected. So the leadership of the church knows that this is something that must be done to save their lives. I want to say that a number of the churches, including the good Catholic Church and the Moravians, long even before we had put this in legislation, had already sent out to their members messages and guidance indicating that they could not continue in the same old way, and requiring them even to do virtual worship in some cases. So the leadership of the church understands and they appreciate the importance of this.
Remember your last one. I believe God in the church, God in your house,
Of
God
course.
everywhere. You don't have to go in church to worship God. I don't go to church like that sometimes, but I'm not a Christian, but sometimes I could put on my gospel music and jump up and bust a good sweat, run from one end of the house to the next one. You don't have to go to church all the time to worship God because you're sick in the hospital. The churches them come right here to you. So if you have family in your house, all you get together and worship and praise God, give God thanks. Because you can't put people's life at risk with this thing going on, because I would like this to break the same case. Because PM, I don't know what they will do, because you don't have enough hospital bed, nurses, I don't know what they will do. People need to just stay calm and Prime Minister, you keep on doing what you have to do. Like I tell you, keep on your head. The ball is out, the ball in our court. You do the best for the people then. Keep your head on, okay?
Thank you very
and
much.
stay focused.
Thank
Stay
you.
focused. You're going to have a lot of people saying all kind of negative thing, but you just stay focused, okay? Don't lose your head.
Bless
Keep
you.
it on.
Bless
Company make calm down on your head, and don't let people say, make you lose your head. Bye. You have a safe afternoon.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for calling. We go back to the phone lines. Call you on the air. Good afternoon.
Yes, good day, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, good day.
I can start talking?
Yes, man. You're live, man. You're already talking.
Good day, Mr. Harris and his team.
Good day to you.
You're all doing a good job.
Thank
and
you.
Mr. Bacchus, I hope at the end of it your institution will be helped in some way or other to cover some of these costs. Anyway, I'll go on now to the main thing that I want to talk about. I think the whole team is trying their best, and this is something new. But in reference to the Social Security, if a retired person running a stall or a business, the Social Security do not give them anything because they're already getting a pension if they're over 62. That is the part I think that the government need to look into, because they didn't have the opportunity to register because they didn't have nothing in place for if you're self-employed and you're getting a benefit, whether you can register. So that aspect have to look at. The next thing is the tourism department should have already written some sort of letter to the people in the Amina Mall, the people at Black Rock, the people in the Pelican Mall, and last of all, the people over Port Zante, because that is a huge problem. It's huge. And you have to get a lot of different ideas how you're going to sort it out. It's not so simple. The answer is not just there. The Pelican Mall, with all that barrier, with the shade come down, that should move. It's very negative for when you open businesses to create some sort of thing moving. All what they have to do is control that toilet. Put the bars across that nobody can go into the toilet. Only the people who own the business can go there. Or if a senior in a special circumstances, they help them out. But that need to look at, because it is a serious matter. I don't know if you see the point that I'm making. You're doing a lovely job. And do not open up no borders for no American airline. Easy. Because they're going to bring the virus here. And when you're done, you have all the problem again. Because all the cases were imported. So, money and all, the health that you're working on is the best thing. So take it slowly.
Okay.
You see the point what I was talking about, the Social Security, because I don't think you're aware of that part.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We're going to have a response from the Prime Minister and his team in just a moment.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
And
but
keep
thank you
up
for
the
calling.
good work, all your team, and do your best. And try look at your health, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. PM. You're getting some advice there. So let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Backus, for taking my call. How are you this afternoon?
Well, if you're going to call this station, please make sure your phone don't drop out, because the last time the amount of licks I get after your phone cut off. So please. All right? Go ahead, please.
Don't worry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon to Honorable Prime Minister, and good afternoon to Mr. Samuel and Superintendent Henry.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Prime Minister, I will always say to you, be very careful. Do not allow anyone to force you to make any decision unless you get your decision making coming from those from the task force, medical authorities. Now, those two doctors that are very negative about what's happening at this moment. Do you remember the Bastia High School?
Yes.
Well, one of them could not solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The other doctor came in the country from Germany, did not get a full test on himself at the airport, did not go into quarantine, and he should have been able to set example in doing those things. Mr. Prime Minister, could you imagine if this government, this leadership was not into your hands and it was in the opposition leader hands? They couldn't solve Bastia High School problem. What they would have done with this problem that we are facing at this moment. Look at the 14 days. 14 days already gone from since the first case. Nobody dropped down yet. So that means something good is happening. So I want you to continue doing it. I have a question for you, Mr. Prime Minister. As you realize, and if you don't realize it yet, well, let me share it with you. There's a list going around with a list of names from Her Majesty Prison inmates that are going to be released, some 31 of them that's going to be released soon. Is that true? And if it's true, why are they going to release? Is it involved with coronavirus? That's the reason why. Or maybe you might be able to explain to us, if it's true, much better than I know about it, or maybe many people out there know what's happening. That's my question for you, sir. And thank you so much, and congratulations to your leadership, and congratulations to Mr. Samuel and CMO and Dr. Cameron Wilkinson. Y'all keep up the good work. To the Royal St. Christopher Police Force, I tip my hat to all you guys. You're doing a great job. Continue, Mr. Henry. I got a question for you a little later on, Mr. Henry.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Val. We go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Henry, Mr. Samuels, and of course, Mr. Backus. I noticed that the PM is spending a lot of time in Wynn these days. I wonder if he's getting a salary from Mr. Backus. Anyway, that's a light moment, these tense times. There have been quite a few concerns about the daily, the daily briefings and on some call-in programs about the attitudes or some of the conduct of some of the Spanish people. Radio stations carry daily, quite often throughout the day, announcements about good health practices and that kind of thing in relation to the world pandemic. I was wondering if the task force would consider taking some of these daily announcements and converting them into Spanish so that those persons, the last Spanish community in both St. Kitts and Nevis, can listen and hear them and conduct themselves in a more appropriate manner as against some of the conduct that they're following now, the practices that they're following, which have concern to a number of persons in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We go back to the phone lines. Good afternoon, caller. You're live on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backus.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
This is Nurse Garnett calling.
Hi, Nurse Garnett. Good afternoon.
Yes. Thank you for this program, and good afternoon to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Timothy Harris.
Good afternoon, Matron.
Samuel.
Good afternoon, Nurse.
Good afternoon, Nurse.
Yes. I have called in just to give a word of encouragement. I listen every day to the briefings in St. Kitts Nevis, and my heart is overwhelmed with gratitude and praise to God, because God is the one who is working. And I just thank Him for all those who are in the forefront, the CMO, Dr. Wilkerson, the staff at the Jennifer Hospital and all the nurses, those who are in the forefront. And Mr. Samuel, for the great work you're doing, and for the policemen, and for everybody. And every day when I listen, I am just saying, thank you, Lord, to God be the glory. Because when I listen to the briefings here in the United States of America, I am not getting anything as much as I get from what is happening in St. Kitts. And I said, God, you are so good. You have been with us, and it's prayer. And I will continue to pray and keep you all going. Be strong in the Lord. And we thank God that He has touched the hearts of so many of our nationals, that they've come forth in some way, whether big or small, to give their contributions. And I want again to say to my people in St. Kitts and Nevis, Lord, be thankful, be grateful. Staying home is the best thing that you can do. I am at home here for 6 weeks. Even before the government called for a shutdown, the church that I was going to, the pastor, he asked that especially the elderly, we must stay home. He called for a shutdown. And I thank God every day for him and praise him. And thank God for what is going on. They're doing it for your good. Do not be like the children of Israel, grumble over everything. And my grandmother always said, the old people say, cut your garment according to the width of your cloth. Whatever you have, make do. And look to God, He will provide. And once again, I want to say, thank God for the team government. Thank God. Oh, praise the Lord for all those who He has placed there to lead us and to guide us. And I ask for wisdom and understanding. And I ask, Lord, that you would touch the hearts of the people, that they would listen, and not only listen, but they would comply. I ask it all in Jesus' name, and I pray continually for you all. God bless you all.
God bless you too.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you very much, Nurse Garnett. We go back to the phone lines. Caller on the air. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Backus, and to the other gentleman, the Prime Minister, and the other young man.
Good afternoon.
Anyway, good afternoon to everybody. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I think you all are doing a wonderful job. There's one issue that keep cropping up, and one of the time I would call in and the medicine to address it. Mr. Matt Mahan seems to have a station that when the government changed, you all met. At one point he said $1 billion, and another point he said close to $1 billion. Now one would get the impression that you all didn't do anything to bring the government to what it is. I mean, I know you all pay off the IMF, I read recently there when this pandemic started that there are a lot of countries who went to the IMF to borrow money. We haven't done that. You are paid off. Well, some part of the land that was sold off to the point where local citizens would not be able to buy it. So I think that particular thing about the $1 billion, you need to address that. Just make a note of it and address it before you go off here. Because, like I said already, he's giving the impression that the government didn't really do anything. The government made money there, and the government is just using the money that they made there. Thank you very much. And like I said already, stay safe. You are doing a good job, and I look forward every afternoon to this news. If 5 minutes pass, go into it, and I don't get it, I will go back during the night to listen to it. So then again, you all are doing a good job, and stay safe.
All right, thank you so much. You go back to the phone lines, call you live and on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Backer.
Yes, sir, good afternoon. You're live. Go ahead.
I'm calling from New York City. And Mr. Prime Minister, this is Sadio calling from New York City.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, sir. And I'm just calling in. I listen to you on a daily basis. And I'm just saying and knowing that you guys are doing a very, very, very good job back home.
Thank you.
We've been locked down now here for, this is about 5th week here in New York City. And I listen on a daily basis. And again, thanks. And you guys are doing a very good job for the country. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, sir. Back to the phone lines. Call you live and on the air. Good afternoon. Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, you're live. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mr. Prime Minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Bacchus.
Yes, good afternoon.
And police officer.
Good afternoon.
And Mr. Samuel. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my dear.
What I can talk about is the support that the students are getting from the government overseas. I got to thank the Prime Minister every day. I had to thank him every day for what he is doing. These students overseas, he put in himself out of it to help them. And when you talk about the frontline workers, they are very, very efficient. They come on every single day. We have to thank them. And one thing I would like you don't have to answer this question. When I ask you, you could answer it. The 5G mask that they say are killing people. I want to know if it's just a radio, some false, because all kind of false information is on the air. But they have a thing on the WhatsApp. Somebody telling me from Trinidad, saying that there's a 5G mass which is terminated and are killing people. And another thing, I can't get over my Prime Minister and the NBC News. The NBC News was second to none in the entire Caribbean. No other Prime Minister did what he did. They asked him question, and man repeat the same question in different directions. And he stands firm. He stands firm. He asked him how he going to get bailout. And where he going to get bailout. He told them he don't need a bailout. Not in direct words that I'm saying it. But he said, what happened that we prepare for the coronavirus. We prepare. We have put in place $120 million for the coronavirus. At the same time, he said some time ago that he added $16.9 million to it. He didn't even bother to talk about that. I can't get over it. I really can't get to it. My Prime Minister, I just pray to God that you will be the Prime Minister and your term going to be too short. 2 terms is not enough. 2 terms is not enough. I don't care who upset me because I am saying if I had the go ahead, you wouldn't be there for not 2 terms. You outbid every Caribbean leader in the world. Caribbean in the world. Nobody ever do what you're doing. Now the students out there suffer. And you here thinking about them. You're going to help them too. You help us. You're paying people who not working and lose their job one whopping $1,000 a month. When the other Caribbean countries like yes, 600 and so forth. You doing proper. Good and proper. Doing well. God bless you. And I pray that you will continue to go on, and the Lord will give you the wisdom and strength and understanding to push this country forward as you are doing. And the Lord bless you. The Lord bless you and keep you. Something else I wasn't able to forget. Anyway, next time.
All right, thank you very much for your participation in the program. Thanks for calling and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. We now go to the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. The last caller did very well. And so I want to thank her for all the vote of confidence she has given me, the commendation, etc. The issue to do with the 5G, I think either Cromwell or Abdias would answer that. I want to join with her, as I've done in every address, in commending our people and in particular our frontline workers in health, in security, in every aspect really, because all of government has been mobilized. I want even to mention those who are not in the front line, but they are there in the background, like our workers in the Treasury, who give up of their lockdown days at times to come in to ensure that we have been able to pay thousands of workers their due, so none suffer any inconvenience. Over 3,000 plus step workers were paid early because our workers at the Treasury and of course those at the step program got leave of Mr. Brandy, went to their offices and they made their payment. Equally, the government paid the PAP workers. Over 4,000 PAP beneficiaries receive assistance from the government. This was being done on time because of the help of all the people. The government's own payments, although we have been in lockdown, were made without a glitch. And I want to thank our staff at Human Resource and again at the Treasury. So again, God bless you, caller, for coming in. Our stimulus package remained the largest and the best. Comparisons are important to understand, and the caller did understand that while here in St. Kitts and Nevis we have made $1,000 available as wage support, close by in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have made $300 per month or $75 a week available. We are doing 3+ times them in terms of our support. Oil Rich Trinidad and Tobago is offering the equivalent of $603.75. Here, we are offering almost twice that, $1,000. Barbados is offering $600. Here in small St. Kitts and Nevis, we are offering $1,000. To God be the glory. We are fortunate, and as God had it right, we have to be thankful for these mercies and thankful that we have a good government. I want to thank my good friend Sadio for calling in all the way from New York. It shows the popularity of this program and this radio station, and that our citizens, wherever they are, they know a good work when they see it. And so, my brother, thank you for the encouragement. I shall continue to do well. Always conscious that for such a time like this, God has, as it were, ordained that I should be the one to take St. Kitts and Nevis to the Canaan land, and I shall work hard to be able to deliver. I want to say to the caller who called about the fake news of $1 billion, look at reality. And we don't need to get into a long debate, so usually I will ignore Io when I will bring up these nonsense, because that is what it is, political hogwash. And this is really not the time to dwell in the sour grapes of those who are engaged in mischief. Because you ask yourself, well, how come a country could have had $1 billion and yet run up a debt with the IMF? So that when the next government came in, they had to pay off $117 million. How come they could have had all that money and they owed the government of Venezuela for fuel over $100 million? How come they had that money, but they had the land for debt agency, land sale agencies, which in relation to the land for debt swap, it was $775 million that was being owed. And you have all that money, and you have all that debt, and you would do nothing, so that we have to come in and pay down $200 million to redeem the land for ordinary people. Just yesterday I visited the site in Lodge Estate with the Director of Agriculture, and marveled at the fact, now that we have redeemed the land, the ordinary farmers and those who wish to engage in farming can now have land close by so that they can engage profitably in agriculture for the future. You ask yourself, well, how come they had all that money? And in fact, the country owed over $500 million of people who had invested in the treasury bills. So it's really a lot of fake news. And to me, the classic is that less than 3 minutes walk from the home of the former Prime Minister was the St. Paul's police station. The St. Paul's police station was allowed to go to the dogs. When rain fell, the police had to scramble. There were electrical shocks and all of those things happening there. 3 minutes away from the residence of the Prime Minister, and they say they had a lot of money. So either the police officers did not matter, or the community of St. Paul's did not matter, or something is wrong with the way they count money. Similarly, the police station in Newcastle, Nevis, went to the dogs under the watch of the last administration. You tell me they had money, and yet Mary Charles Roof fell in 2015, and we had to spend monies to get a brand new state-of-the-art facility there? I don't believe so. You tell me they had money, and when we got in, the Coast Guard facility was abominable. We, this government, have invested significant sums in that facility to be opened this year. So I don't believe and pay much stock into these kinds of fake news when I hear them, because the evidence belies what they are attempting to hold out as a false reality. I want to again, Nurse Garnett has been a blessing and a prayer warrior, and I want her to know that we love her very much in the government and in the country. We are still looking forward to opening up this brand new state-of-the-art facility, health center in Tabernacle in her honor, in recognition of her outstanding work as a senior nurse in St. Kitts and Nevis and head of our health services. So we are looking forward still to that day. In terms of Jean Howell's call on the briefing, I think Abdias would handle that. I could add that we are also going to do some more outreach to that community, and we have identified a person, a medical doctor, who is bilingual, and he has volunteered to be of service in that regard. So we are hearing these things from Jamdown and others, and where they have merit. This is the beauty of having a team unity government headed by Dr. Harris. Where every suggestion has merit, I explore it. Because if good can be done for anyone. The government's job is to facilitate that. And then I want to thank Valti for his call. And he gave the good example. If the last administration could not resolve the problem of Basdale High School, imagine what they would have done to us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, faced with a pandemic, the most serious pandemic for this century. Could that government handle it? And the answer is no. That government could not even handle the management of the country and went to the IMF bawling and crying to get over $250 million to buy toilet paper and essentials for our hospital and pay salaries. So how will they deal with the problems of the ventilators and all the other necessities that are now required? They couldn't even keep Mary Charles open. They couldn't even keep an ambulance at Mary Charles. So how will they be able to deal with the worst health crisis we have in a lifetime, now called the COVID-19? So, Bal, I want to thank you for bringing that stark contrast. You mentioned the notion or the circulation of what purports to be a memorandum coming from the Commissioner of Prisons, Mr. Terence James. And the memo is headed, as I recall, to be considered. Well, I don't understand what the Labour Party understand that to mean. Here it is, the Commissioner of Prisons is writing to his superior saying, I would like you to consider. Where clearly no decision has been made, because all that Terence James can do is what he has done. It is within his judgment call, within the prison laws that allows him to make such recommendation, but they have to be considered. And so he has submitted that no decision has been made with respect to any release. In fact, some of the releases, if they were to be considered, as I understand it, they will have to be considered by the court. And in that regard, those things will have a long way to go. But even when you look at it, you see some of it is much about nothing. Because some of the names, when you look carefully at it, are people who are going to be released anyway in just a short couple of weeks or month. So it's nonsense. Really, it is nonsense for the Labour Party to be attacking Terence James' memo and to say the government want to release. Terence James, the commissioner, is who is proposing that for consideration. And he clearly in it said to be considered. That is all he can do. Consider, because from his judgment, he believed these are persons. Has it been a perfect list? I don't know, because the matter is not before me at this particular moment in time. And so he has made his proposal. It will go through the normal processes and a determination will be made. If there are one or many who should not be considered, they certainly will not be considered. But there is nothing wrong in him writing and saying to consider. Indeed, the prison regulations require that at very regular intervals, all inmate services ought to be looked at and a determination made. So this is not something abnormal in the context of prisons, that people may be considered for early release. That is something that is being done. You have recommendations, not just from him, from the Mercy Committee or the visiting justices. Anyone can make a recommendation. A recommendation is not a decision. And for the Labour Party to take this to scare people, oh, they want to let go these criminals, makes a mockery and disqualifies them really from serving in government. At this time, where people ought to be educated, the Labour Party must lead if you want to play a constructive role. You can't get in that fear-mongering and the propagation of nonsense, for there is no decision. It is a recommendation from Mr. James, the Commissioner, and that is where it is a recommendation on which no decision has been made. For a decision like that to be made, there have to be appropriate consultation with the relevant parties, the DPP, the Commissioner of Police, the legal department, before a decision is being made. So I said to the people, forget that nonsense. When a decision be made, if that reach is at that level, then it will be communicated. And whatever we do, you can rest assured, must have the backing of the law. That is what we are doing, you know. That is what the state emergency is about, to ensure that the police and the health professional have the backing of the law to do whatever they are going to do. There can't be any release of anybody from prison contrary to the law. So I want to just bring an end to that madness being propagated by the opposition party, just being malicious at this moment in time. And then the lady called and she made mention to the policy position as it relates to the Social Security. They've been able to access the $1,000 monthly assistance. This matter I will raise with the Senior Minister and Minister for Social Security, Mr. Van Seymour, to see how we might be able to be in a better position to help and to explore the merit of the case. The lady spoke to a need to reach out to certain persons in the tourism and hospitality. I share that view. I've taken note. I'll ask the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Lindsey Grant, to coordinate that meeting or to meet again with the relevant persons that she has identified. I want to thank all these people really, because they're being the watchful eyes and ears of the government, and we are there to serve them. So I am happy that they are calling in and they are feeling free enough to give suggestions on these particular matters. I think these are the ones that I am also advised really that the approaches of our prison here is common among the prison fraternity. There is nothing that should concern anyone with respect to that, because there are laws that govern those. I want to add though, because a caller, I think it was Valti, raised the issue of the relevance to the release in the context of the coronavirus. And he touched on a very good point. In Trinidad and Tobago, there was substantial release of prisoners there. And they said that they were doing it as part of the efforts to reduce the congestion in the prisons and to minimize the probability of transmission of the virus across the prison population, with consequences for the country, because you have employees, you have prisoners there, you have other people. Right now we have put a hold or a limit or a ban on visitation to the prisons. So there are also health reasons. And I suspect too that the health concern also may have driven the Commissioner of Prison, Terence James, to make his recommendation. So again, it's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of mischief, and you can't take anything for granted. I am happy that the persons have raised that matter, and my advice, do not worry about it. No decision has been made by this government regarding the release of prisoners. And if that were to happen, it has to go through a proper procedure and a proper process. The Commissioner of Prisons has therefore initiated the particular process by sending a recommendation which has to go and get the input of many persons and probably eventually the input of the court for a determination to be made. So there's nothing about which you must worry about. Let not your heart be troubled on that matter, and be anxious over nothing at this time, except be concerned about your health. So, Mr. Abdias, you may want to deal with the issue. There is a concern that the Hispanic community may not be behaving in a manner that is responsible in the context of the COVID, the crowds, etc. What are you doing? Are your team aware of that? And maybe too, Cromwell, as a law enforcement agent here, may also want to give a view with respect to that particular matter, and then you can take the other matters that were put for consideration.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. As it regards to the Spanish community, every day, as soon as the briefings are done, Miss Ileana Gonzalez, Cuban national, who is a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis as well, she's mandated and is working with us to translate all the information that is shared. And by the next morning, all that information is shared with the Spanish community via all social media platforms, whether it be Facebook or WhatsApp. What we have found is that it's easier to communicate with the Spanish community via WhatsApp. So we do a lot of WhatsApp broadcasting and also engage them via Facebook. And I can assure you, the general public, that they receive the information because they have responded to us and let us know that they are aware of what is happening and they know exactly what they need to do. Also, Prime Minister, what we are doing as well is that all the PSAs, public service announcements, are also translated. They are vetted by the Permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Kebas, and once she approves, then I also approve, and the Communication Task Force will go ahead and broadcast them or blast them out. So the Spanish community is being linked. Further to that, let me add to that the community policing team now as well has also been engaged, and they have started an exercise of going to the areas in our community, the Martinite area and the Newton area, and they are actually going physically house to house in the Spanish community, or the areas where we know we have a high density of Spanish population in those areas, and engaging them personally and ensuring that they are educated as it regards our Emergency Powers Act or state of emergency and all the regulation, the SRNOs that are being published. And to date, they have been doing a wonderful job. I want to basically highlight the work and commend Inspector Isles for the work that she's doing with the Spanish community in particular, and Constable Maxine, it is, correct? Constable Maxine. So I want to thank them for the work that they have done in supporting the Spanish community. Also, the Prime Minister has brought it to our attention that a medical doctor who is bilingual by nature, who studied in Cuba, also has volunteered to support the efforts that we are doing in reaching out to our non-national, in particular the Latino community. So that is what we are doing, and we welcome the assistance of that particular medical doctor. So the Spanish community are being informed. They have the information available to them. We also use the information that is being provided by the Pan American Health Organization, and we share that information with them, which is translated in English, Spanish, and also French. So that information is also being disseminated for all. And also, yes, we understand that cultures have a challenge. It was one of the factors that affect the response of individuals to this new norm. And because of the cultures as well, we have found that we have had some challenges with the Latino community, in particular those of the Dominican community. And yes, I think yesterday they are about of the Latino community myself, and they did appreciate the warnings that were given to them. They did appreciate the talks that were given to them, and I think they now better understand that they need to cooperate, as ignorance is no excuse. So I really want to thank the High Commander of the Police Force, in particular Superintendent Henry, for inviting me and allowing me to make that intervention for them, with them, so that they can comply with our regulations, because they are a minority group, they are a vulnerable group, and we want to make sure that they don't contribute to the spread of the disease. Further to that is that I met with all the barbershop owners. I also met with in the afternoon, ensuring that they stay compliant with the regulation, with meeting no more than 10 persons, and I met with most of the owners of the hair salons, and we had a good dialogue to ensure that they understand with Section 7 and the other sections of the SROs which they need to comply with, and also Dr. Laws also made a 6-point protocol for them to follow in order for them to be able to operate. And we were able to translate those 6 protocols. We made a video for them, and that video is being circulated throughout the community, throughout the Spanish business community, and I have received confirmation from all that they have received this video and they are very compliant because they want to be open and making doing a little business as opposed to being closed down. So with that, I am very much appreciative of their compliance. And as it regards to the 5G, real quickly, Mr. Backus, Dr. Wilkinson would have addressed this already. And I want to quote Dr. Wilkinson. 5G is the latest mobile technology that delivers faster mobile data speeds. There is no scientific or technological proof connecting 5G technology with the spread of the coronavirus. Viruses cannot travel on radio waves and/or mobile networks. COVID-19 is spreading in many countries that do not have 5G mobile networks. Neither Flow nor Digicel has deployed any 5G infrastructure and mobile towers in St. Kitts and Nevis. COVID-19 is spread through respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or speaks. People can only be infected by touching a contaminated surface and their eyes, mouth, or nose. So 5G is a myth, and I have shared with you what has been shared with the general public before by Dr. Cameron Wilkinson. So, Mr. Henry?
Well, I think you touched most of it, Samuel. I except to add that those Latino persons from the Latino community who were arrested, we took a deliberate decision not to pursue any charges against them, but to use the opportunity to further educate them on their responsibility to curb the spread or to prevent the spread of the disease. In addition to the presentation that we ask you to come and do with them in their language, our public relations office took their contact numbers and have created a WhatsApp group, and we will be sending messages to them in Spanish. So they would get all of our messages in their language. So we want to keep them informed so that they don't violate.
Well, Superintendent, I'd like to invite you now because we're going to have to wrap now. I know the Prime Minister has many things to do, and I don't want him to feel that we have him here in lockdown. So, Superintendent, before we get our final comments from the Prime Minister, can you share a few words of advice to people for the weekend and for Monday when it's going to be the partial lifting of restrictions? Just a few words of caution or advice.
Right. Well, as everyone would know by now, that we are in the 24 hours lockdown period. We expect that persons would remain at their residence. The 24-hour lockdown doesn't mean stay at a house. It means stay at your house. So you cannot go by your neighbor's house or by family's house and have a social gathering there. You must stay at your residence and stay with your family. And so we ask persons to keep that in mind. Only persons who are required to be out for duty, essential workers, should really be out. If you are a police, if you are a fire, a soldier, a medical worker, private security, these people, they are permitted to be out for the purpose of work. If you have a medical emergency, then of course, we will allow you to access emergency care. So you have to abide by the terms of the lockdown. Now on Monday, what we find in the past is that before 6 o'clock, persons are beginning to travel to go to places to line up before 6. We want to remind you that the curfew ends at 6. And so if you're going to leave your house at 5 a.m. to go to the bank or to Western Union to line up before 6, then you are violating the curfew. And as simple as that, you could be find yourself in conflict with the law. So we ask person to remember that the curfew ends at 6 a.m. Monday morning, and you should not be out of your house before that.
Mr. Samuel?
Yes. Mr. Backus, I just, Prime Minister, if you might permit me.
Sure.
As we have said all the time, Mr. Bacchus, and to the general public, there is no one size fits all when it comes to preparation and responding for this virus. We have seen the dynamism of the virus from when it started in Wuhan, China, to when it moved to Europe, when it moved to North America, South and Central America, and in the Caribbean. And we have to be writing the playbook as we go along on a daily basis, Mr. Bacchus. So I can have a very perfect plan well outlined. However, I have to actually readjust myself on a regular basis, daily basis. And the Prime Minister will tell you himself sometimes we have to advise him on the spot to make certain sudden changes on the spot in order for we to, as Nurse Garnett said, to cut that cloth to suit ourselves here in St. Kitts and Nevis. For example, let me show you an example. I have colleagues of mine from the CDMA member states. We speak on a regular basis. And what is working in Antigua is not necessarily going to be applicable to us or practical to us in St. Kitts and Nevis. What is happening in Dominica is not practical to us. What happened in St. Lucia is not practical to us here. But however, we are learning from each other and we are writing that playbook going forward. So therefore, I want to ask the general public to continue to be supportive and understanding of what we have to do on a regular basis. For example, there's an assessment process that is being done, and that is why that strategy has been advised by Dr. Wilkinson and the CMO. We are actually guided by the science. We know that we have a number of tests that has to go out. These tests go out, and we have to have a period in which the assessment has to be done, and that period of assessment that the doctors assess along with the task force, that assessment will then guide the actions necessary for tomorrow. So therefore, I want to appeal to all to understand that what we are dealing with, the dynamism of the virus itself, the processes, as we are saying, there is no one size fits all. We have to basically on the go make adjustments. It's a new norm even for us in emergency management. It's a new norm for the doctors. As Dr. Laws keeps saying, the literature says, she goes by the literature on a daily basis. So therefore, let us be understanding, cooperative, and let us accept the little sacrifice, Mr. Bacchus. It's a sacrifice. Mr. Bacchus, I have not hugged my little daughter, Jediah, for the past month because it's a sacrifice I have to make. I want to go to the beach too. That's my norm. And I was teasing Henry and I was teasing Dr. Laws. I want to go to the beach, but I have to make this sacrifice because we want to overcome this challenge and prepare St. Kitts and Nevis for anything else that is to come. Because as we have the hurricane season fast approaching, so we may have that challenge facing us on top of the virus. And the country has to adopt. And I think the Prime Minister and the Cabinet in itself is doing a wonderful job in terms of being guided by the science. No decision so far that has been done is not being guided by the science and the recommendations and the dialogue with Cabinet. And I can say this openly because my colleagues in the region are having challenges, and when I speak to them about the processes that are followed in St. Kitts and Nevis, they often wonder how we are getting it done. And it's the same, Dr. Laws will tell you the same things. So I said it to say with no partiality, but impartiality and objectively, that the process in itself is dynamic by nature. All right, Dr. I'm calling you, listen, I talk to Dr. Laws so much that I'm calling you Dr. Laws, right?
No, you're hard-working, man. You understand.
And Mr. Bacchus, I just appealing to all to be patient, bring the ideas forward. We are open to everyone to bring their ideas forward and their suggestions and recommendations. And we don't omit anyone. Okay? So with that said, please be patient and understanding and supportive of what is being done in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Mr. Abdias Samuel, the National Coordinator of NEMA. I'd like to thank Superintendent Carmel Henry, Commander of A Division, and now we give the final words. We give the opportunity for the final words on this program to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, Dr. Timothy Harris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bacchus, and thanks to all who have listened and all who succeeded in getting their calls through. I know that many more wanted to. But it has been for me a particularly important learning exercise to hear our callers express their views on so many topics, and to be inspired by their interest and curiosity in the work of the government, to be encouraged by their own strength and commitment to do what is necessary to help us overcome, and to be inspired by their appreciation, not just for my own sacrifice and my own leadership at this moment in our history, but the knowledge, the certain knowledge that they have, that they can trust the administration that I have the privilege and honor to lead at this time to do the right thing for the country. And as I look and hear their view, I marvel at the contrast. Largest and most powerful countries all over the world, in the Americas and in the world, is the United States of America. And you have heard from Sadio, and you heard from Nurse Garnet, and you heard from the news, and you know that this is a most powerful challenge for the most powerful country, and they have not yet gotten it right. You look to Europe, in Germany, where the finance minister I'm advised resigned. You look to Italy, that for a long period was basically just falling apart. And you must marvel that we are fortunate, to God we give the glory, that right here in St. Kitts and Nevis, our own government and people have been able to respond to the most significant pandemic facing the world in a manner that must make every patriotic citizen and every resident here proud to be associated with St. Kitts and Nevis. How could you not be pleased and satisfied when you see the tremendous dedication and devotion to duty being displayed day after day by our frontline people? Comrade Henry, each time I go to the NAOC briefing, he's there. Mr. Brandy is there, but Mr. Henry is certain to be there more often than Mr. Brandy. When we see the way in which Mr. Samuel has taken this within his breath, brought every sinew of his body to ensure that he works with all of the group, you can't help but have a deep sense of admiration, that in St. Kitts and Nevis we have some of the finest civil servants to be found anywhere in the world. When you look at the way in which Dr. Hazel Laws and Dr. Cameron Wilkerson have come with this deep, enduring commitment and sacrificing their time, their family life, to ensure that we defeat this, that we are the first to defeat it, you can't help but being inspired. Sometimes I go to the NEOC meeting, I said, let me go. Tired as I am, let me go, because they must know that the Prime Minister of the country consider what they are doing important, and important enough for him to come, if only to give them moral solidarity and support. And in that regard, I must commend wholesomely and fully the Attorney General, who has put his all in this fight against COVID-19. I have not been to all, but I've heard him each time I tune in to the briefing, being present there and doing a tremendous job. So, Honorable Vincent Byron, my brother, my teacher, my colleague, I want to commend you as Prime Minister, but I do so most importantly as a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, and admire your call to duty. Equally, I must commend our Senator, Minister of Health, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, who has been there again giving support and providing excellent leadership to the health sector, which is now stronger than it was before. So I want to commend them, to commend the Commissioner of Police, the Lieutenant Colonel of our Defense Force, Mr. De Silva at the Customs, Dolly Hughes at Immigration, and all the others who are part of the front line, the staff at NEMA, for paying host to the efforts at the NEOC, and all the volunteer groups. They are people not part of the government sitting down doing good work for us. And Abdias make reference to Elena, the Cuban national, who is here taking her time to do the translation. There are several others doing research, submitting them to the Prime Minister. And we have new volunteers now to engage the Spanish community. All of society has come in, recognizing the moment is now. You only have one chance to defeat this pandemic. One chance. And each of us must give it our best shot. And while some are whining over little nothings, the big picture, we must never lose focus. That unless we defeat COVID-19, it will kill many of us. And so all of us have to come together to ensure it is defeated. I marvel at the challenges that governments within the OACS, all of us are facing, some worse than others. I have heard and seen reports out of Antigua, where Prime Minister Brown rightly made reference to the fact that the revenues are down most dramatically, and they are insufficient to be able to pay the normal bills that the government will have to pay. No fault of his. A pandemic came, turned the rest of the world upside down, and the OACS too. And so you have that particular challenge. I have heard and I've spoken to my colleague Alan Chastney regarding the new approach that this pandemic, having turned the economy of St. Lucia upside down, as it has done here, has forced the government into a position where the government is negotiating with its employee representative to find new modes of payment. We will pay you some in cash, and the others is a bond. The others basically is like they pay you a little later down, when you catch your hand, as you would say. A new mode. Force upon governments everywhere. And we here in St. Kitts and Nevis have better appreciate how fortunate we are. Will we be this way forever? No. Because this pandemic has done to countries what serious illness do to people in their personal life. It just take all of your money and it knock you out when you have a serious illness. This is what this pandemic now is doing to countries. Why we are fortunate is we have brilliant leadership, if I may be the first to say so. We have brilliant leadership, and I, as the Minister of Finance and my cabinet, took the time to ensure that we prepared the country for such a time like this, when difficulties would come. A lot of time I hear people say, why the Prime Minister don't use the surplus? Well, you see, if you use the surplus willy-nilly, we would not have been able to purchase ventilators. We would not have been able to add to the stock of ambulances. We would not have been able now to retrofit our hospital and retrofit our private ward. So if the worst comes, we are ready to deal with it. And we pray to the grace of God that we will be spared. Because although we have made the investment, we hope it will, it's like almost, not the same, the hurricane. You do all that you can and you still hope that the hurricane will not come. We are doing all that we can. Right now on a per capita basis, we have one of the best testing rates. Yes. And while we have achieved that, people who should know better, instead of commending the government, commending the excellent work of Dr. Wilkerson and Dr. Laws, they find ways to nitpick. Oh, you should have done more tests. Well, if you want a test, go get a test. because any of your doctor might be able to organize that. But that is not the burden put upon us by the WHO. And as the CMO has said, everyone who ought to be tested has been tested by this government. And that satisfies me. And so I don't go second guessing, because I have every confidence in the people who are advising the government and for them to be objective. Finally, Mr. Abdias spoke about the script being written as we go. Sensible people must be aware of that. So when someone comes and says, well, tell us what 2 weeks will look like. I am not God. I am a mere human leader, obedient to a God and go to Him every day for wisdom and guidance. And not everything He tells me I can say to Ira McMahon or to any individual. What 2 weeks would look like, we will know as we get closer, because there is dynamism and there is unpredictability even in the scientific community. And you bring the best of wisdom available to the world. No one can tell you yet when the vaccine would be ready. No one. No one can tell you when a therapy would be ready. So no one can tell you what the world will look like tomorrow. When we look at the confirmed cases and the number of deaths, poor me not going to tell you what the world will be 2 weeks from now. What I will tell you, whatever it is, this government is sufficiently focused and sufficiently informed to ensure we do the very best that we can for the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. And having come this far by God's grace, we will not be abandoned by our God, nor by the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the resources that we have put aside are being well utilized to take us through. We are working a plan and everyone can see how we have moved, where we are at now, relaxation, more people out to work. The farmers, the fishers, they don't have to call in on the program now, except if they don't get some of their stimulus. We have solved that problem. The barberers who had their challenge, we have found a way. We are working a plan to keep the country safe. That is the broad contour of the plan. And we will do everything that we humanly can do to keep our country safe. That is the assurance that I can give as a leader of the country. And when we come with our addresses, we make the necessary adaptation, because no one knows how long this would last and what he will do. Our first and most important job is to keep our people safe and save lives. So far, the government, with the support of the people, the business community, and the church, we have achieved that goal. And that is a broad goal. The nitty-gritty of the details will come as time passes into eternity. But for now, that is a broad agenda. And everything I do and everything we do can be a judge against one simple thing, no lot of details needed. Will it make the people of St. Kitts and Nevis safer and stronger and better? Yes, it is. So when we bring up the extension of the emergency powers, does it make St. Kitts and Nevis stronger and better? Yes, it does. That is why the Harris administration brought it. I heard Dr. Laws, and maybe Clyde must play this. Clive Bacchus must play it. And his program last week indicated that she needs legislative tools and frameworks to be able to win the war against COVID-19. And she said one of the effective tools she had was the Emergency Powers Act of March 28, and that the government went to Parliament thereafter to give her further tools for the health people, the police, to be able to do their work. She went on to explain, for those who may have missed the point, without these regulatory framework, I can't impose social distancing on anybody. I can't impose upon people to wear masks. I can't encourage a bad word, but impose certain behavioral changes on the barberers and the hairdressers. And I can't interfere with the enjoyment of those in the Spanish community. It is the emergency powers that allow the state the flexibility and the quickness to respond. So if somebody go out the road today and do something strange and unhelpful, immediately we can respond. And that is what we want in this fight. I promise the country one thing. Every tool that is required for the fight, we will provide or we will work hard to get it. And I am not so caught up with electioneering that I put the health of the country at risk in order to satisfy some people power hungry for the elections. The elections will come at due time, and we are certain as we can be with God's grace, the people will make a good decision. Thank you.
And thank you very much, the Prime Minister, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris. All the best to you and your team, sir, as the battle against COVID-19 continues in St. Kitts and Nevis. A very good afternoon to everyone. And thank you so much for being a part of today's program. Thanks for calling and sharing your thoughts. Thanks for listening, and thanks for viewing, of course, on our social media platforms. Thanks to our colleagues in the media, and of course, a big thank you to the Cable and Caribou Brewery.
As social distancing becomes the norm of our everyday life, the Cable wants you, our customer, to know that we are here for you every day. Just log